Hi everyone, this is Keshav Reddy, lecturer in English, TWRDC Maripada. In today's lesson, we are going to learn about drama, literary terms, and some of the features about drama. So this class is useful for all the aspirants of MA English and NET set aspirants also, and for other literature competitions. Let us quickly move into the class. In this class, we are going to learn what is drama, origins of drama, elements, structure, and major types of drama, and some important vocabulary or literary terms related to drama. So before we begin the class, let us have a look into the small video. Have a look into this. So do you know what is the literary term related to this feature? Here, the audience are reacting to the play or movie or any video or any serial it may be. So the audience are actively involving in this and they are giving directions to the actors. So do you know what the literary term, exact literary term for this feature? So watch this video till end and I'm going to show you some more videos or small clippings like this and we will discuss the literary terms about drama. Let us quickly move into the class. What is drama? Drama is one of the four major literary forms, that is poetry, drama, fiction, and non-fiction. So drama is a story enacted on a stage for a audience. So drama may have a prose or verse dialogues. It may be in the form of poetry, it may be in the form of prose. This dialogue is meant to be performed by actors, not to be read. And this drama is generally divided into acts and scenes. So generally a drama consists 5 acts and each act will be having some scenes. So look into the origin of drama. Drama was developed during the 5th century BC. So during the festivals to honor Dionysus, is the god of wine and fertility for Greeks. So Greek verb dran means to act, to perform. So in previous or the oldest drama forms, chorus is one of the main feature of dramas. Chorus is a group of actors. They will be coming onto the stage and they will be giving some features or some incidents. They will be narrating some incidents instead of showing. For example, if they want to show a war, which is not possible on a screen, simply a chorus will come onto the stage and they will just narrate the incidents of that war and they will declare the results also. So here the two famous dramatists of Greek are Sophocles and Euripides. And beginning of the English drama. So English drama has begun at church. The clergy people or the church people started enacting the biblical stories which are related to Christ, and due to the increasing demand, this place have moved to churchyards and then to markets, and then it lead to mystery and miracle and morality plays. So that marked the beginning of the tragedy and comedy, and that is the beginning of English drama, and theaters were started. Do you know the first theater in England? It is named as the Theatre. It was built in 1576. And Globe, Curtain, Swan are the other theaters. So Globe Theatre was owned by Shakespeare. The age of Shakespeare, or the Elizabethan age, is known as the golden age of drama in literature. So let us quickly look into some of the events or elements of drama. So here, when a novel is written, it's very important to note this point. When a novel is written, it is just finished. But when a play has been written, the worst difficulties still lie ahead. That means a dramatist's work is not yet finished. He has to work with the audience. He has to work with the actors, producer, scene painter, the dressmaker, the musician. All these things he has to take care. Then only he can present the play as per the stage directions or as his wish. So here he has to take care of not only the literary elements like plot or the story, the theme or dialogue. He has to take care of the technical elements such as the scenery. What type of scenery should be uh, on the screen, or what type of objects or props to be appear on the stage, and the lighting, sounds, makeup, costumes, and everything. Not only these technical elements, he has to take care about the performance elements also, like the author characters, facial expressions, gestures, and their body language also. So according to Aristotle, he has stated 6 elements of drama. So let us quickly review these 6 elements. What are the important elements in a drama? Plot, theme, characters, dialogue, music, and spectacle are the 6 important elements of drama according to Aristotle. So Aristotle has given these elements around 2000 years ago, which are still today very, very important in drama. So let us quickly review this. What is a plot? Plot is a storyline or the story or the theme. Theme is the idea or the lesson we get from the play. And characters are the people. And dialogue, they are words to be uttered by the characters. And music is the actor's voice or the music which is played on the background. And the spectacle is the objects which you see on the stage. It may be a costume, special effects, settings, objects, everything. So the author or the playwright has to take care of all these 6 elements. Then only a drama will be fulfilled. So according to Aristotle, plot is the most important element of these 6. This is very important. So let us quickly move into the structure of the plot. So plot must have a 5 stages structure. For example, a plot must begin with the exposition and ends with a resolution. So exposition is at the beginning of the drama. Here the dramatist or the author starts giving the introducing the characters. He will be introducing the conflict, he will be introducing the setting, he will be introducing the characters, everything. And then events of the climax. So to reach the climax, there must be a twist in the story or some rising actions in the story. So conflict. So the problems will be arised. So this is called as in the second stage of the play is rising action. After rising action, the story will reach to a climax point. That is the highest turning point of the story. Then all the problems will be resolving one by one. That will be taken as the falling action. So here the actions or the events occur after the climax are called as the falling action. And this falling action or these resolutions lead to the final resolution, that is end of the story, where all the conflicts of the story or problems will be solved. For example, in a comedy, what happens? The story begins very unhappily, and at the end of the play, all problems will be resolved, and it will just end with a marriage. Whereas in a tragedy, The story starts with a happy end starting, happy beginning, and at the end of the tragedy, the hero will be died. So this is the structure of a plot. Now let us move into the two major types of drama. One of the most important type of drama is tragedy. Tragedy is a word taken from tragus, Greek word. It's a Greek word. Tragus means a goat song. In a in rituals of Greeks, they usually sing a song while they are offering the goat to the god. That is, when they are slaughtering, when they are sacrificing the goat, they usually sing a song. That is a tragic song. So this is the origin of the tragedy. And tragedy is always talks about the serious side of the life. And the aim of the tragedy is to make the audience cry. And usually it ends with the death of the hero. So you may observe a picture I have taken from baby's picture. It's taken from the Bhopal gas tragedy, where a father was burying his baby. So you know that, this incident was happened in 1984 in Bhopal. So in a company, that is where a pesticide company. So because of the methyl isocyanide, so around 15 to 25,000 of people were died, and they are partially injured, or some they have taken to hospitals because of various problems. So this is the picture shows about the tragedy. So, and according to Aristotle, it's a imitation of a serious action, and it has some certain magnitude, and the language must be beautified with uh, through the actions, not through narration. So as I already told you, dialogue is not for narration, it's for action. It is not for reading, it is for acting on the stage. So through all the scenes, the final aim of the drama is tragedies to arise pity and fear, and that is called as a catharsis, or the purification of all the emotions. So I will quickly give you some of the important terms related to drama: antagonist and protagonist. Antagonist is usually a villain, and protagonist is a hero. Hamartia is a very important term related to drama, related to tragedy. It means to err, error. It's an error of judgment which leads to the downfall of the hero or heroine. For example, in a movie or in a play, the hero may trust a friend, but that friend is not a genuine one. Because of that friend, he may be going to face some difficulties. But without knowing that issue, this hero trusts that friend. So this error of judgment leads to the downfall of that hero. This is called hamartia. And what is peripetia? Peripetia means that because of this hamartia, because of this error of judgment, his fortune turns. That means a sudden reversal of the fortune. It's a turning point in the story. And after some point, the hero will recognize his mistake. That is called anagnorisis. Anagnorisis. So the discovery of his own fault that leads to the peripetia, or the reversal of events. So slowly it recovers, and ultimately leads to the death of the hero and death of the main characters in the play. So that is called as catharsis. Catharsis means the purification or the purgation of emotions. That means the audience will feel the pity and fear and everything. At last, when they leave the theater, their emotions will be purified. That is called as catharsis. And what is comedy? This is the second type of drama, major type of drama. So comedia is a word origin from Greek language, which means a laughter provoking. So laughing. It reflects the lighter side of the man. And the aim of a comedy is to make the audience laugh. And generally, comedy ends with a marriage. Let us quickly review the differences between a comedy and tragedy. So the aim of tragedy is for catharsis, as I told you, to purify the emotions of the audience. And whereas the comedy is to correcting the manners. So comedy is nothing but the correcting. A person may have a bad manners. So it imitates the bad manners, and at last in the play, that manners will be corrected. So this is the aim of the comedy. And always tragedy deals with the dark side of the life, comedy with the light side of the life. So here its aim is to make the audience cry, and its comedy's aim is to make the audience laugh. So generally tragedy begins happily. Everything seems happily in the play, but the play ends with unhappily. And here in comedy, it begins unhappily and ends happily. The atmosphere of the tragedy is very serious, whereas the atmosphere of comedy is cheerful. And in tragedy, something bad happens to good people, like hero. Whereas in comedy, good happens to bad people, like a villain will be enjoying some wealth or some happiness. So this is the difference between the tragedy and comedy. So now let us quickly move back to that videos which I have played in the beginning, and we will just discuss the literary terms which are related to drama. Now I'm going to play another short video for you. So this is also about a literary term, which is the most important literary term. Just do you know what is the term, exact term related to this video clipping? So I will give you some introduction about this clipping. So here, hero is just ordering the train. He is giving an order to the train to move back. And according to his orders, the train started the journey backwards. Do you think it really happens on stage? No. But is it possible in our real life? No. But what do? We accept this convention for the sake of enjoyment. And in general, a hero may he may hit hundreds of rowdies with a single hand. And in horror movies, what happens? A ghost will play something, will do something with his mantras, chantings, and everything will be changes in seconds. Do you think all these things really happens in real life? But what do when we go to the theater, when we go to the movie, when we watch a video clipping? We accept that as it is a real one, though we know it is a wrong one, though it is it is impossible. We accept that. This is called as willing suspension of disbelief. It's a term coined by Coleridge. According to Coleridge, audience willingly suspend their disbelief. Suspend means to keep the disbelief aside. We know it's a disbelief. Even though what we do, we keep our disbelief aside for the sake of enjoyment and accept everything what comes on the stage as a real one. And we accept the drama as a real one. It is applicable not only for drama, to poetry, to any literary work which is on screen or written on movies, whatever it is. So especially it is related to the supernatural powers of gods or maybe ghosts. They order something and it will be fulfilled within seconds. And we accept as it is for the sake of enjoyment. If you go through the movies like Koi Mil Gaya, Krish, Avengers, Avatar movie in Hollywood, all those movies are related to supernatural and scientific experiments, but they are not possible on the real life, but we accept it for the sake of enjoyment. This is called as willing suspension of disbelief. It's a very, very important term for PG or net lit set and other competitive exams related to literature. And another important term today I'm going to introduce you is three unities. What is three unities? According to Aristotle, every play, every movie, every work must follow three unities. What are the three? So in a drama, what happens? Unity of time is very important. That means a time taken to the event and its representation on stage must be same. For example, in a 3 hours play, in a 3 hours drama, the author, the dramatist must show only the incidents which are possible to take place only in 3 hours. For example, in Telugu movies or in other movies, what do we see? The hero will just go into a pond and he will take some dip into the water and immediately he will become a young one. As a boy, he enters the pool and he will comes out of the pool as a young one. So almost there is a variation of 10 to 15 years in his development. Is it really possible on the stage? So that's why it's a it must be have some time restriction. So here in Telugu movies or in whatever the movies, they show the story of 400 years ago with the help of flashbacks and all. They use the techniques, different techniques. Whereas according to Aristotle, in a Greek drama, when drama was in the beginning stage, it was impossible to show all these things. That's why they have given the rule unity of time, to strict, to use to follow only the time which takes for an event, that must be equal to the time taken to play the drama. And unity of place is a drama must be confined to one place. In movies, generally what happens, the hero will have a dinner at one place. He may be going for a breakfast in some other place, and within hours or minutes he will be appearing in a new place, that is from America to England or from India to Australia. But it is not possible on stage to show because of the technical problems or whatever it is. They, in olden drama, they have laid a rule that is called unity of place. The place must be combined to only one place. That is, the entire play must be related to only forest. For example, it must be only in forest. You cannot show forest in a one scene one, and in scene two you cannot show a castle, and in scene three you cannot move to any other place like this. So unity of place is also very important. And the unity of action. All action must be confined to only one single plot, one single story, or only about one or two uh, persons' life. But in modern movies, what happened? The director or the playwright or the story writer is able to show a series of incidents related to different people. I mean, 3 or 4 different stories in a single movie. That is, if you observe a movie called Journey in Telugu, it is related to 4 different plots which are interlinked with a bus journey. So this is called unity of place, unity of time, and unity of action. So according to Aristotle, every play must follow these three. Next, let us watch another small video clip. So it's a monologue by Mark Antony in the play Julius Caesar. It's a famous monologue delivered by Mark Antony that begins with the words, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, lend me your ears." Here, I'm just going to give some background information about the Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was a great warrior, and he was killed by Brutus and some other conspirators. And they really wanted to show Julius Caesar as a bad man. But Mark Antony's speech, Mark Antony's speech, he's a friend of Julius Caesar, turns everything, turns the situation of the Greek society. See here what happens when Julius Caesar was killed, when this Mark Antony attends his funeral, and he started giving the speech, his monologue, "Friends, Romans, and countrymen." So here, why Brutus was killed? Why Brutus has killed Julius Caesar? Actually, Brutus was an ill-tempered man. He wants to grab everything from Julius Caesar, and Caesar don't know about the Brutus cruelty. So just with the speech of Mark Antony, everything, the scene changes completely, and Brutus was executed by the people of. Here the monologue uttered by Mark Antony is to, what is meant by monologue? Monologue is a speech uttered by a character. It may be a character who is alone, or it may be on the stage with all, when all the audience are, when all the other characters are present in the play. So monologue is a long speech. In Telugu, there is a famous speech like Danavira Shurnakarna. ఏమంటివి ఏమంటివి అని ఒక పెద్దది ఉంటుంది. So this is called as a monologue. Then there is another dramatic device that is called as soliloquy. What is the difference between monologue and soliloquy? Soliloquy is also a speech. It's a long speech. But in soliloquy, the word solo is single, loquy means speech. It's a solo speech. A character speaks to himself who is alone on the stage. And what happens when the character delivering this soliloquy, there will be no other character present on the stage, and it is not here to be, not to be here to the other characters also. To be or not to be, that is the question. It's a famous soliloquy in Shakespeare's Hamlet. And let us quickly move into another literary term, that is aside. So if you see, all these three looks similar: monologue, soliloquy, and aside. Aside is a speech in front of other characters who are not supposed to hear it. For example, in Telugu serials, it's a very common phenomenon, like when two characters like aunt and his maybe his daughter-in-law, or maybe some other characters are speaking on the stage. So aunt asks some question, and this daughter-in-law, instead of answering that question, she will deliver an aside. That means she expresses her inner feelings, which are not audible, which are not meant to be audible to the aunt or any other character on the play, any other character on the screen. So no one will hear that words, only the audience will hear that. So this is called aside, means a speech to side, turning the face to one side and giving a speech. This is called aside. So in Romeo and Juliet, there is a famous aside: "Shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this?" It's a famous aside by Romeo when Juliet comes to propose him. He, Romeo, willingly aside, he delivers an aside. So shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this? That means he is asking the audience, shall I hear more from Juliet, or shall I speak? So this is an aside. So I'm once again repeating you, monologue is a long speech made by a character it is meant for everyone. It is meant for the other characters. It is meant for the audience and all. Whereas soliloquy is a speech only for the character. The character speaks to himself. So when there is no other character on the stage, on the stage only one person will be there, and thus that person delivers a speech. That means a soliloquy. Whereas aside is all the characters are present on the stage, and a particular character turns his face aside and delivers a speech. This becomes a aside. That means no other character are supposed to hear it. Only the audience are can hear that. Only audience can hear that speech. This is called a aside. So in the previous video, we have gone through a monologue from Mark Antony's speech. That is the Mark Antony speech in Julius Caesar. Now I am going to give you one more quickly. Let us go to the two more important words. That is irony. Irony. What is irony? Irony means a contrast, difference. So we may feel something, and what to our expectation, the happenings of the incident may be different. So there are three types of ironies. One is dramatic, verbal irony. Verbal irony is what we speak is different, what we mean is different. Suppose if a character says, I want to become a king, but I don't want to become a king. He may say like that. But the audience can understand his meaning. Is the meaning of his words that his intention is to sit on the throne. But he is simply saying that he don't want to sit on the stage. He don't want to sit on the throne. So this is called a verbal irony. What we speak is different, what he mean is different. And then the dramatic irony. The very first video I have shown to you, an old lady shouting at the TV, and she is giving the instructions to the character on the stage. Because because of the screenplay or the incident going to happen on the screen, the characters has more ideas. The audience has more information than the characters. The characters know less, but the audience know more. This is called dramatic irony. See, for example, what is being said or done on the stage has one meaning to the characters and others to the spectators, others to the audience. So, for example, if a hero is on the stage, some person will be coming, some character will be coming, approaching him, and he will be talking very nicely to him. But instead, he may have a sword, he may have a pistol inside kept inside his pocket to kill the hero. But this incident is clearly known to the audience, but not to the hero on the stage. At this time, as I have shown the video, the old lady is shouting at the TV, is shouting at the hero, hey, that person is not a good one. He is going to kill you. Something is going to happen. So don't trust that person. So she will be giving some instruction to the hero. This is called as dramatic irony. The audience know more, characters know less. This is called dramatic irony. And this is the first video I have shown to you. And the last and the most important literary term is situational irony. What is situational irony? The outcome of the situation is totally different from what we expect. So here I'm going to give you two more words, expectation and surprise. In a plot construction, what happens? There are two methods. Expectation means what we expect takes place on the screen is our expectation. Surprise means what we expect is not possible on the stage. For example, if you are watching a comedy movie, the incidents are going as per your expectation only. But if you are watching a horror movie or a suspense thriller, you may be suspecting one person as a killer or one person as a thief. But what happened? The author will give you surprises. At the end, you may think the one person is a villain, but some other person will be turned out to be the villain. This is called a surprise. So where there is a more expectation, is going to be fact coming to true, we will be feel bored. What we say simply, I know this story very well. I know the story in advance. There is nothing in the movie. For example, if there is too much suspense in the story, if there is too much surprise to you, there are too many twists. What you feel? You may be feeling very high. That is called very high expectations on the movie. So an author must balance these two, expectations and surprises. So generally comedies all employs this expectations and tragedies will have surprise. So here the author has to balance these two things, expectation and surprise. So this is called situational irony. When the situation is according to your expectation, it's a expected one. Or if the situation is not according to you, it becomes a surprise. So this is called a situational irony, and author must balance all these things. So these are the some of the literary terms I have given to you, and I hope this video is useful for all the competitive exams in literature like PGT, TGT, or NET, SET, and MA English examinations. And thank you for watching this movie and watching this small video. And let us quickly recap what we have learned today. And in this video lesson, we have learned what are the literary terms related to drama, and what is drama, and what is the structure of drama, what is the origin of drama, and what are the elements in drama. So thank you for watching this video. Subscribe more for my channel for more videos. Thank you for watching this.